Okay, this is section 9.4 in your book. It starts on page 465, and it's called the percent equation. And in this section, you're getting another method, a new method, to solve percent problems. Originally, we were using proportions. We've been using proportions. With the proportions, we have an of here, we have 100, or the percent over here, and we did cross products to solve. Now this new method, we're setting up an equation. In the end, you'll be able to choose the old method or this new method. Some problems are easier with the old, and some problems are easier with this new method. So you need to learn both and practice both. Percent equation starts out with a sentence that we'll make into an equation. In the problem, we'll read something like this. A is P% of B. And we'll change that into a math equation, where is becomes an equal sign. P% and of becomes times. So A equals P% times B is the way the equation will work. A is a part, and B is the base, which is the whole thing, A being a part of the whole thing, B being the base, the whole. So you can, we're going to go through this equation so you can see, this word problem so you can see how it works. It says your class has raised 80% of its goal of $8,000 for a trip to Washington, D.C. They want to know how much money has your class raised for the trip. So we're trying to find out how much. And we should try to make sense of the problem first. If they already have raised 80% of our goal of 8,000, well, how much money might that be? Well, say they had raised 50%. 50% would be half of 8,000. They would have raised 4,000. So they definitely have raised more than 4,000 and not quite this 8,000 yet. So when we get to the end, we should see if our answer makes sense. So if we're finding how much money, we're going to find out that the amount of money we raised is going to be equal to 80% of the total 8,000. So I'm going to take that percent equation and make it a real math equation by putting for the amount of money, the part, A equals, I'm going to change the 80%, actually I'm just going to leave 80% right now, but I'm going to change the of to times. Now, this is a multiplication problem, but you cannot multiply a percent. So you always have to change the percent to a decimal. I'm changing the percent to a decimal, so I'm going to move it, the decimal point, 2 places to the left. And I now have A equals 0.80 times 8,000. And I just need to multiply that to get to my answer. So when I'm multiplying 0.80, that's the same as the number 0.8. So we don't need this extra 0. We can make it more simple by just multiplying 0.8. And we get this number. I've got to move the decimal over 1 place. So I get 6400. And I remember that what I was finding is money. So I'm going to put the dollar sign. So that means we have raised $6,400 of our total goal, which was 8,000. So that sounds about right as being exactly 80% of 8,000. And that's my answer for this one. Okay, for this first practice problem, it says, what number is 20% of 110? So to write it as an equation, we're asking A equals 20% of 110. So in order to do it, all I need to do is change 20% to the decimal point 0.20, multiply it by 110. So I can just multiply 110 by 0.2, and move the decimal, I get my answer is the number 22. 22 would be 20% of 110. Go ahead and do number 2. Put this on pause and go ahead and do it, and then check my answer. So in order to do it, we're again doing A equals 25% of 88. So A would equal 0.25 times 88, and then we'd have to multiply that. 88 times 0.25. Let's see, gives me, I believe it's 1760. And move the decimal 2 places. And again, this comes to 22. For the third one, you can go ahead and do the last 2 and then check your answers for those. So what number is 40% of 150? I am doing A equals 0.4 times 150, and that's going to be 150 times 0.4 comes out to be the number 60. Last one, A equals 0.75 times 800. We're just multiplying 800 times 0.75, and that one's going to come out to be 600. Okay, these problems, though they're a little bit hard to see, now it's asking what percent of 150 is 90. So with our new method of doing these, we would do the equation. So it's always based on A equals P percent times B. And in this problem, it's asking what percent of 150 is 90. So it's saying 90 is what percent of 150. So you would change it to 90 equals P percent times 150. And then, in order to get the P percent alone, you would divide by 150. You would get 90 over 150 equals P percent. So you'd simplify this, and then you would simplify 9 over 15 by dividing both by 3. You get 3 over 5. So we have 3 over 5 equals P percent, and we'd have to change 3 over 5 to a decimal. It equals 0.6. And then we have to switch that decimal to be a percent, because they want our answer as percent. So I'm going from decimal to percent, so I'd have to move 2 places to the right, and 60% would be my answer. Now, this problem, I would definitely suggest you use the other method. So we're going to do this one with the other method, and then we'll come back and do these others. So it says, see if I can fit it, what percent of 150 is 90? So the other method is setting up the proportions. Whatever comes after the word of goes right here. What percent means I have n over 100, and I have my 90 here. And from this point, you would do cross products. 150n equals 90 times 100, and then you would end up dividing by 150. So you'd go 90 times 100, get that answer, divide by 150. And when you do that, you're going to get 60, and it's 60%. Okay. I'm going to go to the next page, and then I may come back to these. So to these. 50 is what percent of 250? I think it's going to be fine if we just do these problems. So if we're doing it as an equation, we would have to go 50 equals what percent, so P percent of 250. So once again, if you're trying to find the percent, my suggestion is use proportions. Don't use the method that's taught in this section. If we're, for that problem, just trying to find the percent, I think it's much easier to use the proportions. So let's set it up with proportion. For all the others, I would try using the percent equation. So we'll see. Let's do this one with proportion. So of 250 means that of, whatever comes after of goes on the bottom there. We're finding what percent, that means n over 100, and the 50 would have to go on the top. For this problem, I would simplify this fraction, 50 over 250, divide each by 10, and you get 5 over 25. Simplify again by dividing by 5, and you get 1 over 5. So our new equation is 1 over 5 equals n over 100. And then the easiest way is to think 5 times 20 equals 100. So 1 times 20 would equal n. N equals 20. Nice, easy method. I would stick to that method of proportions for that problem. For this one, let's try doing it with the equation. So it would say 130 is 65% of what number? So of what number means that I'm going, I'll do it in the next second. I'm going to say of B. So I'm going to change it to 130 equals, I'm going to change the percent to a decimal, of to times. So the equation is 130 equals 0.65b. To get b alone, I divide by 0.65. And I end up with 130 divided by 0.65. I have to move the decimal, which means I have to add 2 zeros and have the decimal here. When I divide this out, this goes 2 times, it's going directly over this 0, and that's 130. And then I'm going to add these zeros so that my answer is 200. So 130 is 65% of 200. Next problem. A clothing salesperson sells a suit for $350. The salesperson receives an 8% commission. This one is fine doing with this percent equation. So it's asking how much is the commission. So the commission is going to be equal to 8% of this $350 that the suit is. His commission, the part that he makes, is 8% of the $350. So to change it to a percent equation, I'm going to change 8% to a decimal. I'm going to move it, the decimal point 2 places to the left, and it becomes 0.08. Of becomes times 350. So it's pretty easy to do this one with this equation. I'm just going to take 350 and multiply it by 0.08. And 0. I get 2800. Gotta move the decimal 2 places. 28. So that means he made $28 commission. Okay, that is the end of this packet. You have homework to do now, so go to my essay and find your assignment and do the problems. Thank you.